happened. Todd, our Lord and Savior, has indeed spoken once more. He has spokeneth into the world the truth of Almighty God Howard's teaching, and as a result, I have prepared this seance for us to enjoy it. You see, he did an interview with the Kind of Funny Games cast, specifically Mr. Gregory Miller. And in this interview, he's asked a series of questions. Some of them are very, very good and pressing, like Todd's retirement. He's getting to be a bit of an old feller. When is he gonna pass the torch, and what's that gonna look like? Also questions about Starfield, the Shattered Space DLC, which has been kind of missing in action for a while. But all of that is sort of beside the point. The question that I found most intriguing was this one about collaboration with the Fallout franchise specifically. But before we get into all of that, of course, a thank you to the sponsor of this video, Opera GX. Thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. This may come as a surprise to you guys, but I am on the internet a lot. As a result, I need a browser that works for my workflow, also that's intuitive, easy to use, and respects my privacy all at the same time. And on top of all of that, I love customization of things like this, and Opera GX has all of that. In fact, right now, Opera GX has actually partnered with CDPR for a Cyberpunk 2077 customized version of the browser, so you can add all sorts of specific mods to your version of your browser and fine-tune it exactly as you like. And with this Cyberpunk splash screen specifically, you can see you have things like a unique background when you go to open new tabs. And with these unique modifications to Opera GX, such as the Cyberpunk 2077 modification, you can really make your browser exactly what you want it to be. Even down to the live wallpaper, sounds as you drift over links on your homepage, or you can even enable the ambient music so as you browse, you feel as though you're living in the world of Cyberpunk. In addition, you can actually configure the wallpaper yourself. If you go to the settings, you can not only change the time of day if you want to either sync it to the real world time of day that you are experiencing, or if you prefer the look of one over the other, you can tweak it to your heart's content. Or if you still want to continue messing around with it, you can alter all of the different settings to make it precisely the version of the Cyberpunk world that you like. I don't know about you guys, but I love all those glare distortions, the intensity I can bring down a little bit, increase the vapor glow just a tad, and the overall vapor, and I can even change the shade of it to make it exactly how I like it. You can really customize your browser to be exactly what you want it to be. And Opera GX even has a quick import tool which makes swapping browsers easier than ever. You simply select the browser that you're currently using, select what you want to import, and it will bring it all over without you having to so much as think about it. So just like you can see here, if you want the background music, you can turn it off or you can leave it back on, but you can fully customize it to your heart's content. In addition, you've probably also noticed if you watch my Luke Stevens live channel where we do stream clips and everything, I use Opera GX every single day on stream, and it's because it works better than any other browser I've tried, which have all had problems with playing video or screen tearing when browsing web pages. All of those headaches I just don't want to deal with, and Opera just works. Check out Opera GX at the link in the video description box below or in the pinned comment, and head over to the gx.store in order to download the Cyberpunk mod or any other mods that you could possibly want. They've got ones for all sorts of different games, like this one for Fallout New Vegas if you want. I mean, this looks pretty cool too, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Again, check it out at the link in the video description box below or in the pinned comment. Okay, but with that said, let's get back into it. I have been going crazy since the Fallout show came out, looking for another Fallout fix, and it is so amazingly baffling that Xbox has nothing seemingly planned except for a Fallout 3 remaster, which was leaked previously, and other than that, like some Fallout 76 updates, but there really is nothing big planned to take advantage of all of this hype and interest in the franchise. I mean, seriously, Fallout is bigger than it probably has ever been, and they have nothing to capitalize on it with, except for a game that's like 6 years old and that a lot of people still just don't click with, or a 9-year-old game that they just updated and broke. But Luke, they also have Fallout Shelter. They do technically have Fallout Shelter, a 9-year-old mobile game. You're right. How could I have forgotten? But here's the thing, while we give PlayStation plenty of crap for having like The Last of Us Part 2 remaster and The Last of Us Part 1 remake, and all these other things slated for release right around the time that the show comes out, and I'm sure they're gonna have Ghost of Tsushima stuff when the movie comes out. They have all this stuff lined up so that they can sell you something or give you something to enjoy while you're interested because of some external multimedia event. So The Last of Us Season 1 comes out. Oh, cool. We've got The Last of Us Part 1 remake ready to go. And yes, I know it's a remake, but at least there was something. But Xbox really has not done much of anything to capitalize on the success of the show, like at all. And I think there's a couple of possible reasons for it, most likely of which being that they didn't expect people to like the Fallout show as much as they have. I think they were kind of braced for it to be another Halo show. And so when it ended up being wildly popular, they're like, oh, right. Yeah, you guys like this. Cool. Great. We don't have anything planned, but I'm glad you like it. But that brings me back to this interview and this question that was asked of our almighty God Howard. And that is whether they're open to collaboration, because at this point, Fallout 5 is likely to come out around 2034. That will put it, assuming there's no delays or anything, roughly 19 years after the release of Fallout 4. A delay happens, it's 20 years. To put that in perspective, if Fallout 5 launched today, that would mean equivalent timeframes. Fallout 4 would have launched in 2004. When Bush was president. There is so much time in between these releases at this point because BGS can only do so much that it's baffling they would just sit on the franchise for that long, especially with the hype and interest in Fallout as a franchise that the show has helped to kind of gin up. So now people are wondering if BGS and Xbox specifically, I guess, are open to sharing the franchise with somebody else. And that's where this question comes in. I'm gonna let it play out in its entirety. Shout out to Greg for asking the good question, because I don't want to cut anything off and I want you to just hear it, and then I'm gonna pick it apart and tell you what I make of it.
Again, with Fallout now having, I would say, even more success, being even bigger than it's ever been thanks to this show, do you sit there and think more about that co-development, external development, let people go, not make Fallout 5, but make Fallout : whatever, more stuff like the mobile game, more stuff like in New Vegas?
I would say we've always had those conversations. We did a lot of things for the show. It might seem like, hey, there isn't a big new game out, but we added content into 76 for the show. 76 has a really great map expansion that's coming this summer with Skyline Valley. And so we look at what we're doing with the franchise, and then we say, do we still feel good about, I can't reveal it now, but here's our runway for the Fallout.
Yeah, you can do
as
it.
A franchise.
You can reveal it now, it's fine.
And it's season 2 happening. What are we doing on mobile? What are we doing in 76? What are we doing with this thing? What are we doing with this other thing? and when are these landing? And again, if I could snap my fingers and have them all be out and ready, I would. But the main thing is, like, all right, how do we deliver these at a high quality level? That's always most important.
I have some thoughts. First things first, of course, Todd mentions that they actually did add a lot of stuff for the Fallout show in anticipation of the excitement that it would certainly garner. And listen, I have tried Fallout 76 many, many times, and it's just not for me, and I will be honest about that. I'm not gonna pretend like it's bad just because I personally don't like it, right? That's not necessarily a given, that just because I don't personally like the game or get dopamine from it, doesn't mean that it's full stop bad as it currently is. At launch, it certainly was bad, but currently I think it's much better, certainly. But even then, among the people that have been playing it since launch and are hardcore fans of Fallout 76, there are still many problems with it, and the updates that have come from BGS, Austin specifically, have been pretty anemic and not very high in quality. Over on Luke Stevens Live, we actually checked out this review from Mr. Matty, the one and only, who a month ago, before the crazy hype of the Fallout show, he reviewed the latest update to Fallout 76, which was particularly wanting. The review is really well done, and the fact that he played an entire expansion in Fallout 76 just for a video, I think deserves a lot of credit, because not many people would do that. And basically the takeaway from the video is that the game is just fine. Like, they're never gonna put their best content forward. They're never gonna blow anybody away with it. It's always gonna do just enough to keep the player base satisfied and never more than that. And I think that that is an astute observation of the current state of the game that I've heard echoed from many, many fans of Fallout 76. But I think all of this is to say that for Todd to be like, well, we have added a lot of stuff to the Fallout franchise for the show to keep fans happy. Look at what we did for Fallout 76. Well, like, what you've done for Fallout 76 is kind of mediocre. And that's assuming all Fallout fans like Fallout 76, which is not a given. Many Fallout fans find Fallout 76 to be extremely wanting. But beyond that, Todd mentioned they've done stuff with Fallout on mobile, which of course refers to Fallout Shelter, which is fine. And then he refers to two other things when he says,
Season 2 happening. What are we doing on mobile? What are we doing in 76? What are we doing with this thing? What are we doing with this other thing?
What are we doing with this thing and this other thing? When does that line up with season 2? Blah, blah, blah. One of those things he's referring to almost certainly is the Fallout 3 remaster. That was leaked as part of the FTC hearings. It hasn't officially been revealed or anything, but it's out there. People know about it. It's happening. It's a thing. I know some people are really hopeful for that, but it's a remaster as far as we understand it, not a remake. All of the technical restrictions that plagued Fallout 3 at launch and to this day, they might be polished up a little bit, but it's still going to be Fallout 3. We're not talking about a remake. You're still going to have to do the constant load screens between every single little zone as you travel through. Just understand, we're not talking about a remake. And honestly, as long as expectations are clear, I'm fine with that, as long as it's not like $50 or something. Yeah, remasters are fine. I personally am not that confident in their ability to put forward quality content, which is the other thing that he mentions when he says,
if I could snap my fingers and have them all be out and ready, I would. But the main thing is, like, all right, how do we deliver these at a high quality level? That's always most important.
That's always most important. I'm sorry, Todd. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna bring it up, okay? For Todd Howard to mention quality always being the most important thing is freaking hilarious. You can say a lot of things about Bethesda Game Studios titles, like that they're fun, they're addicting, they're junk food games, it's like eating popcorn, you keep popping it in and it's delicious and satiating something deep within you, but there's no nutritional value at all, but you're still okay with it. You could say lots about Fallout stuff and Skyrim and Elder Scrolls, all of that, but they have always, as long as anybody can remember, struggled with putting forward the most high quality product when graded against its competition. They've always struggled with polish. They've always struggled with bugs. They've always struggled with keeping things technologically in line with their competition. And for a long time, their games were just frankly fun enough that it didn't really matter. It was okay because at least Skyrim's fun enough that you can look past all the bugs and stuff. Or Fallout 3 is quirky enough that you can look past the fact that it has really, really bad gunplay compared to contemporaries of the time. Nowadays, people just don't tolerate that. For a AAA studio to be struggling to get games to launch consistently is baffling. For them to come out with like the Fallout 4 Next Gen update and have ultra-wide monitor support be one of the main selling points, and then completely break ultra-wide monitor support in that update is hilarious. I mean, hell, Juicehead, who is, I think it's fair to say, a Bethesda fanboy. Most of his content is Bethesda related at this point, so I think that's fair to say. I don't mean that as like an insult. I just mean you're a fanboy. It's fine. It's whatever. As long as you're upfront about it, that's fine. But even Juicehead came out and said that he thought the state that they launched the next gen update was not okay. I don't think it's okay. Look at this ultra-wide support. He's all excited to play the game on ultra-wide. Nope, they just took the UI and stretched it horizontally. I wish I had seen this when I tried the game myself. I don't have my ultra-wide monitor set up for gameplay right now. It's all vertical off to the side. So I didn't even think to try it. I was like, they've put ultra-wide support as one of the main selling points of this update. Surely that works at least. Like, there are free mods that have been up since 2015 supporting this. There's no way they screwed up But guess what? They screwed it up. On Xbox, the platform they are owned by, one of the 3 DLCs shipped without meshes for the new weapon that's included. It's a DLC weapon pack, and it's largely unusable right now. On PC, many players, including me, cannot progress the very first quest of the Workshop DLC. Look at this. They shipped it. This is the quality that Todd said was most important. I mean, come on, guys. Look at this. If somebody came to me and worked for me and put this forward and said, yeah, Luke, we got the ultra-wide support working for the game. Are we good to put this in the update and send it out to all of our millions of players? And they showed this to me. I would fire them immediately for thinking that this was acceptable. Like, if they thought that this was high quality enough, that it's clipping text off the screen, and it doesn't even properly stretch the UI off to the corners, it just clips off at the edges. I'd be like, this is a prank, right? Like, you're joking that you thought this was acceptable. But no, this is what a multi-billion-dollar company released. Bethesda Game Studios, probably multi-million-dollar company, probably worth a few $100 million at this point. But the fact that they even thought that this was acceptable is ridiculous. And the fact that Xbox puts their name behind it is ridiculous. So again, I just find it really freaking funny that Todd is saying that, like, yeah, I know people are excited about this, but quality has always been the top concern. You sure about that? You really want to commit to that? Okay, dude, whatever. It's statements like this that get me more worried than anything else. Todd can say, like, what he mentioned where he said, we've always been open to collaborating with other studios, which is supposedly the headline of this interview, or of this portion of the interview, which is that he's always been open to it. They've had conversations about it. Make of that what you will. Maybe they will give the franchise to Obsidian or to In Exile after they do Clockwork Revolution or something, and they'll get to do a remake of New Vegas or a sequel to it, something like that. Maybe that will happen. But when I hear the guy that's at the very tippy top of this organization saying that they've always prioritized quality first, and that is their utmost priority, with a total disregard for reality, which is that is obviously not true. I don't know how I can possibly take anything he says seriously at that point. Like, is he aware of how ridiculous that sounds? Like, either he's in straight up denial and like is aware that they've struggled with quality and is just pretending like they haven't for marketing perks, I guess, or he really does think that the stuff they release is high quality, which is like almost more concerning because at that point I'm questioning your senses. Like, can you not see? And honestly, this video is filled with little bitty examples of that, where there's just things said where Todd might mention something off the cuff, but when you look at it a little bit more precisely, it's just confusing. And it makes you wonder how much of a bubble BGS is sitting in. But the other thing this interview really confirmed for me, unfortunately, as someone that doesn't really like Fallout 76, is that Bethesda Game Studios currently views Fallout Shelter and Fallout 76 as the current offering for Fallout, as the sufficient offering for Fallout. Again, I encourage you to listen to the entire interview, but there are entire stretches where for like 10 minutes, it's just a circle jerk of how great Fallout 76 is and how they've recovered it. They're talking about it like it's some sort of No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk 2077 redemption arc, when I don't think that it's on that level at all. Like, yeah, it's not criminally bad at this point, but it's still not great. And I know what you might be thinking, Luke, what are you looking for? What do you want them to say? Like, he's hyping up the game because people are excited about it. What do you want from him? What I want is just an honest evaluation of the current circumstances. I just want them to say, like, listen, yeah, I know, like, there's members of our community that are not that into like the MMO offerings of a Fallout 76, and we're working really hard to make sure even those fans are satisfied and get something that they can enjoy. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That, okay, cool. Like, we're at least acknowledging reality that Fallout 76 isn't supposed to be everything to everybody. But instead, we're just pretending like, well, we added a ton of content and Fallout 76 is great. And then also, you know, we've got some other projects. We got mobile, we got all this stuff going. So, you know, things are great. And quality's always been at the top of our mind. So we're going to make sure it's all quality. I'm like, I just don't know how seriously I can take anything that any of these people are saying. But all this to say, he points out two things that are happening that have not been announced, where what are we doing with Fallout 76? What are we doing with mobile? What are are we doing with this thing and with that thing? And when do they land? How can we make quality, you know, the highest we can? The first thing almost certainly is the Fallout 3 remaster that was leaked already. The second thing that we know is probably coming, it's Fallout 5. So there's a really good chance all he's talking about in this interview that people are like losing their minds over is just a Fallout 3 remaster we already know about, which is coming in a couple years probably, and then Fallout 5 in about a decade. It's possible he's talking about something else, or there's some other mobile game or something that's in the works, but it's also just as likely that he's just talking about a game that's a decade away. So I just want to remind people, you can speculate to your heart's content one direction, but you can also speculate the other direction and end up feeling much less excited. But there's a point later in the interview where he actually directly addresses Obsidian and Fallout New Vegas, which is pretty rare. They've always been kind of coy around New Vegas. It's sort of like the redheaded stepchild nobody wants to acknowledge, but he actually does address it here. Let's hear what he has to say.
Cam wrote in and said, you've kind of touched on this from a vague point, but he wants to be specific. With Bethesda and Obsidian now being under the same Microsoft umbrella, has that opened up more opportunities for collaborations like New Vegas? And I'll stop you right there, Todd. We all saw the headlines. You hate New Vegas. You hate Obsidian. You've retconned them out of the timeline. It just doesn't exist. So you don't even have to answer this question if you don't want to.
Which is, to be fair, very stupid. Sorry, guys, that I'm taking this time. It is very stupid for people to be like, oh, they retconned all of New Vegas. Not really. I can't go into it without spoiling the show, but like people who said that almost certainly didn't watch the show. Okay, we'll just move on.
First, I'll say they did an amazing job with New Vegas. And we see some of that. And I'll say to everybody, like, that's a game that we published, right? So it's also kind of,
Ah, so he's taking credit for it. I see. Okay. Yes, it was Obsidian, but we published it. So yeah, we get credit for it too. He's calling dibs. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. And I would say Fergus, who runs Obsidian, is absolutely one of my favorite people in the video game industry. And he's been around for so many decades, has done so many things, and has seen it all. So they do a fantastic job. I can't speak to things that we're doing with the franchise in the future, obviously. But New Vegas is a very, very important game to us and our fans. We think they did an incredible job. And if anything, the show is leaning into, right, the events there.
Just a bit by that final shot of the show. Yeah, just a bit it's leaning in.
Yeah. And obviously season 2 is going to be featuring some of New Vegas. And we're careful about, maintaining the key events of that game and the great content in it. It is obviously difficult to deal with when you're going back to an area where a game had multiple endings. We have some answers there, but it's hard. It is, I'll just admit, everybody realizes it's hard to sort of canonize or say this is exactly how that game ended. And so whenever we can, I like to avoid it. Like, don't refute anything that happened. Be careful when you're specific about what happened. Just like, we want that game and what the players did to be their reality and truth.
My truth. Indeed, Todd, my truth as well. And so some fans are taking this and running with it, being like, see, he said it's very important to them. It's a very important game, blah, blah, blah. Nothing said there makes me think that there's currently something planned related to New Vegas. They're just saying it's an important game to us. We love Obsidian, they're nice, and we published the game, so we should get some credit too. And that's kind of like the extent of it. I know some people want a New Vegas remaster or remake or a sequel so bad that they're just starting to see shadows of it everywhere, kind of like a Bloodborne 2 or a Bloodborne remake or something. But listen, it's just not there right now. As far as we know, even with those FTC leaks and everything, there currently is nothing planned for Fallout other than Fallout 76 updates, a Fallout 3 remaster, and then Fallout 5 in about a decade. That's all there is. There is a Fallout shaped hole in Xbox's lineup for the next 10 years. And it's such a waste because it is, at this point, one of the biggest franchises in all of gaming, thanks largely to the show's popularity. And they have nothing to capitalize on it with. It's one of the biggest blunders of the generation as far as I'm concerned. It's amazing. It would be like if Sony just didn't have anything Last of Us related for sale when the Last of Us show dropped. It just would be baffling. really? You didn't do anything to prepare for this? But that's where Xbox is. They just have nothing. And I know they're very into like Fallout Shelter, and Fallout 76 makes them good money. That's all great. But there's a huge portion of the fan base that has gotten nothing since 2015. And even then, they weren't that thrilled with what they got in 2015. And now they're being told they're going to have to wait about 20 years in between releases to get something that they really, really can be excited for. And I guarantee you, like, if people are saying, oh, well, let Bethesda just do the Fallout 3 remaster, that'll satisfy some people. You really think that these guys that just did the Fallout 4 next gen update that broke everything, you really think they're gonna do a good job remastering that game? No, it's probably gonna run worse than the game that already doesn't launch on most people's PCs without editing the INI files. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing that anybody takes any of this that seriously. Like, there's a huge quality issue with BGS, which is my problem with them. They have some sort of disconnect between how players evaluate quality of their games and how they evaluate quality, and their tolerance for jankiness and outdated mechanics and tech, and the gamer's tolerance for it. They are locked 15 years behind the curve, and they seemingly are totally oblivious to it. Like Todd said, when he says that they prioritize quality above everything else, like, yeah, that's always been most important. Yep, that's what we're doing. That is demonstrably untrue. In a court of law, you would be tried for perjury for that statement, because you know that's not true. There's no way you don't know that's just a bald-faced lie. And yet you could say it with a straight face, and it's just shocking to me. And as long as there's no acknowledgement of these shortcomings, as long as there's no acknowledgement of the problems, nothing will get better. Nothing. This is why when I did a survey right after Starfield, I asked 70,000 of you guys through the YouTube community post function whether or not you were more or less excited for The Elder Scrolls 6, their next game. And roughly 30% of you guys said, I'm going to be more excited. I mean, at this point, yeah, I'm more excited after playing Starfield. Already not a great metric. You'd hope the majority of players are more thrilled for the next game after playing the current one. But regardless, I let 3 months pass, and then I did the survey again after most people had played more of Starfield. And that number had dropped to 6%. Only 6% of 70,000 respondents said they were more excited for Bethesda's next project after finishing Starfield. That should be the most concerning thing that Todd hears all year, because that's where player sentiment is. And yet there's just this total disconnect. And that's kind of my main takeaway from the interview, is just that I listened to Todd talk about his games and the roadmaps for them and the projects they're working on. And I just get the sense that there is a massive disconnect between what BGS is trying to do and their interpretation or impressions of the gaming zeitgeist and where it actually is. And so long as there is a disconnect like that, I don't think they're going to be doing high quality work. I don't think they're going to make any sort of comeback. They might keep some Fallout 76 and Fallout First subscribers happy, but other than that, I don't know who else is going to be that thrilled when after 2 years of anxious anticipation, we finally get a Fallout 3 remaster revealed, and it looks like a 2008 game with some updated textures, and everybody's like, really? This is what you've been working on? It's going to be a dumpster fire. I'm sorry, Todd. At this point, I'm not even like mad about the neglect that Fallout has felt since 2015. I'm just disappointed because the show has shown us the vast potential that the franchise has, that the IP has, and how in the right hands, it can be made so fascinating and so compelling, and the stories are so rich, and yet there is just nothing of substance on the way. And even if they were actively pursuing something other than free-to-play mobile games and an MMO that's mediocre at best, even if they had other projects on the way that maybe are big releases and big surprises we'll find out about at the Xbox showcase in June, even if there is something like that, the amount of trust that gamers have in his team to do it is so low that it's going to be almost impossible to overcome. At this point, all of the goodwill from the Skyrim days has been burned, because there is just seemingly a total disconnect between the studio and the players. And until that's fixed, nothing will get better. So as much as I would like to hype this up and be like, oh my God, they might possibly sort of be doing a New Vegas 2 or something, I don't hear anything in these interviews to take that message away from this. I just don't see anything. And at the end of it, I'm left more frustrated than I am excited, which is unfortunate, but perhaps perfectly accurate for a BGS interview and update. But that's gonna do it for me. Thank you for watching. I love you all desperately. And of course, shout out to the sponsor, Opera GX, for making this video possible. Much love. I'll see you in the next video. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.